Hey guys, I'm Jessie, and today we are going to talk about all of the reasons that you should probably DNF a book. I was watching my normal booktube videos the other day, keeping up with all my friends, and one of my friends over at Manuscripts, Music, and More did this really cool video about all the reasons that she thought that you should DNF a book. And I absolutely loved that idea. I thought her video was fantastic, so I decided to kind of do my own little version of it. Some of my reasonings are probably the same as hers. Some of them may be a little different, but I will leave her channel and all her information down below so you can check out her video, which inspired me to do this video. To me, DNFing is self-care, right? There is not enough time in our lifetimes to read every single book. And just because a book is like super hyped and everybody is loving it, doesn't mean that you're gonna love it. Like, I'm definitely known for like DNFing some pretty beloved hyped books. And it's just because they weren't working for me. And I will never say like not to push through if you think that you're gonna like the ending. Like, do you. Push through if you want to. For me, I don't like pushing through. I would rather be like, I'm not feeling this, I'm just gonna DNF it, and then read something else that I'm absolutely gonna love. Because honestly, I have way too many books that I need to read to not be loving what I'm reading. And when I do DNF books, I usually pass them on. Like, I pass them on to my niece if they, if they're like YA books and they read young, or I give them to my used bookstore and then I get credit and I can purchase other books. So they're never like going to waste. They're never like getting burned or going in the trash. And I'm never going to be like, no one should read these books because like they just weren't for me. But like, do yourself a favor. If you're not loving that book you're reading, just stop reading it. You'll feel so much better. I know for me, if I try to like push through too much, if I'm like, I have to finish this book, even though I'm not liking it, like I will put myself in a reading slump and like not want to read anything. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm just going to go play video games or watch a movie or whatever. I'm not going to want to read. And like, I love to read. So that's just not a good time for anybody. So here's a few reasons that may be like going through your head that may trigger that, yeah, I just need to DNF this book. First and foremost, you're bored. I know for me, if I'm reading a book and I'm just like, bored, I don't want to continue. Like, obviously, there's some, like, lulls in books and stuff like that, but normally, you're interested in what's going on. And if you are bored and disinterested, it's time to just give it up. Just DNF. It's okay. Set the book aside. You don't have to read it. No one is forcing you to continue reading a book you find boring. So just don't do it. It's fine. Even if your best friend loves this book, if you don't love it, it's fine. You can remain friends. Your friendship does not hinge on liking the same books. I promise. The next one is that you start thinking about all of the other books that you're going to read once you're finally done with the book you're currently reading. If your mind is wandering and you're reading a book and you're like, but look at all these. What am I going to read next? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be this? Am I going to read that? Like, if you're just choosing your next book subconsciously while you're reading your current book, you're probably not that interested in your current book. And you should probably just put it down and read that next book that you want to read. You know? Honestly, a DNF isn't always forever. There's been so many times where I've sat a book down because I was bored and disinterested, and then I picked it back up later when I was in a better mood, better headspace, different mood, whatever. And that's fine too. You can temporarily DNF, you can permanently DNF. But if you are like sitting here like, well, I want to read this next and this next and this next and this next, just read the next thing. Stop reading what you're reading because you obviously don't want to be reading that right now. And that's fine. And if you're just sitting there like wishing that it would be over, if you're just like, oh, let me get to the end of this, just DNF it. You don't have to finish it. I know there are people out there that are completionists, that they think they have to read the whole thing or the whole series or whatever. You don't. If you're not liking a book, you can DNF it. Especially if you're like wishfully thinking that it would go by faster. And if you just read book 1 and finished it and don't want to read the rest of the series, then don't read the rest of the series. I've done that so many times. Like, so many times. But if you were just like wishful thinking that it's done, then just be done. It's fine. I promise. It's okay. One thing that happens to me when I know I'm about to DNF a book is I just don't remember what I just read. And like, it could be moments later. It's like, you're just like glazed, like reading through the page. And then you like just zone out and you're like, what just happened? I don't remember anything I just read. And then you have to like go back and you're like, okay, well, I wasn't paying attention. Like, what just happened? Like, I'm missing something. If you're finding yourself having to like go back and reread because you're zoning out and not paying attention, you're probably just not that interested and you might just want to DNF. Just be done. Or even if you don't, permanently DNF, temporarily DNF it. If you just have to keep going back, set it aside. It's okay. One that was talked about in that other video that's going to be linked below that I fully agree with because I do is you start looking up negative reviews for the book you're currently reading before you even finish it. You're like on YouTube and Goodreads and you're looking up all the like rant reviews to like see if people thought the same as you. And you're like, can I be the only one who's not liking this? And like you go through all the 1-star Goodreads reviews to like make yourself feel better about yourself and like help justify the fact that you want to DNF. So yeah, I do that all the time. If I'm just like, oh, I'm not feeling this book, I will start watching like rant reviews or looking up Goodreads 1 stars and just being like, they feel the same as me. They finished it and weren't happy. So like, I should just cut it out. And then the other thing, the final thing that was also mentioned in that video is when you start looking up like what happens at the end, you start looking up spoilers. I am definitely guilty of doing this because it's like, I'll DNF, but like kind of want to know what happens, but like not enough to actually read it. So I will go and like read a full spoiler synopsis and be like, yeah, now I know, now I don't need to read it. And if you're at that point, you should probably just DNF the book and read the Wikipedia page because it's going to give you the same level of enjoyment. If you're already at that point of, I don't care, just read the Wikipedia page, read the spoiler section, be like, oh, cool, that's what happened. Have no desire to read the rest. I've done that so many times. I did that with the Shadow and Bone series. I did it with Throne of Glass. I was just like not interested. So I just went and read the Wikipedias. Read all the spoilers. I know what happens. And honestly, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty justified in my desire to not read the rest of this series. I just, DNFing is self-care, right? Like, it's perfectly fine to DNF a book. I love DNFing. Because if I'm not wanting to finish something, I'm just not going to. I have 2 kids, I have a job, I have all kinds of stuff going on. I don't have the time, nor the desire, to read books that I am not loving. So I don't. I DNF, I end them, and then I just pick up something else. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna love this and enjoy myself, because that's what it's about. Like, this is fun. This is a hobby. This isn't like reading for high school where you're like, you have to read the full book and give a book report and da-da-da-da. Like, look, no lie, even then, back when I was in high school, I would definitely read the Sparks notes. If I wasn't enjoying myself, I would know just enough to take the test if I thought the book was trash. Which I feel like teachers started to like really catch on to. And then they would read the Spark notes themselves and then like ask questions that were like obviously not in the Sparks notes. So they caught on, but Sparks notes were my life back in high school. I DNF'd before I knew what DNFing was. I would just stop reading. But yeah, these are all the reasons that you might want to DNF that book that you're currently reading. If you're sitting here thinking, wow, I'm reading this and I really don't want to be, maybe Jesse's right. Then maybe I am. Doesn't happen often, but sometimes I know what I'm talking about. So just DNF it. Temporarily DNF it. Set it to the side. I did that with Malice. I read half of it, sat it to the side, and then picked it up, finished it, liked the ending, but I still didn't like it enough to finish the rest of the Faithful and the Fallen series. But I'm glad I ended up finishing it, even if it took me 6 months. So, you know, you never know. Sometimes you might come back to a book that you DNF'd and be in a better headspace and love it. And sometimes you might just never come back to it again. And either one is perfectly fine, because it's all about enjoying yourself. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me, talking to me about DNFing. Let me know your thoughts on DNFing. What makes you DNF a book? What is something that you see in a book and then you're automatically like, done? Like, just, I don't want to read this anymore? Or like, do you have like a cutoff point where it's like, I'm not enjoying myself by 100 pages, I'm going to DNF? Like, what is your DNFing look like? I want to know. All right. Thanks again for hanging out with me. My name's Jessie, and I will see you next time. Bye.